And good evening once again. Day 1406 of the Trump administration, 56 days until Inauguration Day. It's been 18 days since the election was called for Joe Biden. And on this day, when our nation lost over 2,200 people, what a contrast between two men, the outgoing and incoming president. Donald Trump, in the space of a little over 24 hours, pardoned a turkey and a guy who committed a felony. While today calling for the outcome of the election to be overturned, he said it out loud. Joe Biden, on the other hand, gave what was billed as a Thanksgiving address to the nation, exhorting the American people to join him in fighting the virus and not each other, a call for resilience, while noting how tired we all are in the face of this battle against an uncontrolled pandemic.
I know the country has grown weary of the fight. We need to remember we're at war with a virus, not with one another, not with each other. This is the moment where we need to steel our spines, redouble our efforts, and recommit ourselves to the fight. So hang on. Don't let yourself surrender to the fatigue. I know we can and we will beat this virus. America's not going to lose this war. And America holds fast to the conviction that out of pain comes possibility. Out of frustration comes progress. And out of division, unity.
As the transition moves forward, both Biden and Harris will receive their first presidential daily intelligence brief on Monday. More cabinet nominees also expected to be announced next week. Politico reporting Biden appears to be leaning toward appointing Obama National Security Advisor and Democratic Party veteran Tom Donilon as CIA director, which brings us to today's rather predictable development concerning Trump's first national security advisor, one Michael Flynn, who lied to the vice president and the FBI about his conversations with Russians, then who pleaded guilty twice. Flynn also initially cooperated with Mueller's investigation. As expected, Trump did pardon him today, posting this, quote, "It is my inexplicably capitalized great honor to announce that General Michael T. Flynn has been granted a full pardon. Congratulations to Flynn and his wonderful family. I know you will have a truly fantastic Thanksgiving." The Justice Department, which had been trying to get charges against Flynn dismissed in court, said it only learned of Trump's decision today, but in the spirit of Attorney General Barr, called the move an appropriate use of the president's pardon power. Earlier on this network, a former FBI counterintelligence official had this to say about this pardon.
The president who claims he's a law and order president has just said in this pardon that it's okay to lie to law enforcement, even if you admit that you've done it. So we need an attorney general who actually is about law and order. We need an attorney general who understands that America is his or her client and who therefore relates to America and understands what we've been through as a country in the last 4 years.
And irony of ironies, Sally Yates, the former DOJ official who first sounded the alarm to the Trump White House about Flynn, said to be on Biden's short list for Attorney General. As all of this unfolds, we can say yet again tonight, this virus is at its peak in our country right now. The New York Times paints a dire picture of the surge, noting that for the first time since the virus erupted in our country, we've added over 2 million cases in the past 2 weeks. Washington Post adds to the story, noting the daily death tolls reaching levels not seen since early May. Today, as we said, over 2,200 new deaths were recorded in our country. New CDC forecasts estimate the total of 294,000 COVID deaths in this country by December 19. Yet despite pleas from officials and health experts to stay home, millions are traveling for the Thanksgiving holiday weekend. Politico says Trump officials and the Biden transition team today held the first of several meetings about the vaccine. And Dr. Fauci said he's already reached out to Biden's chief of staff now that he's allowed to.
I've been in contact with Ron Klain, just touching base with me, telling me that we're going to be talking about this very soon now that the transition is in process.
The pandemic is still taking a heavy toll on jobs. Weekly jobless claims total just over 750,000, an increase from the previous week. tragic, especially at this time of year. With all this going on, the outgoing president remains laser focused, not on jobs or the pandemic, mind you, but on overturning the results of an election he lost. Today, the Trump campaign touted a Pennsylvania judge's decision to issue a temporary order preventing further action to certify that state's election results pending a hearing. More on that with the state's second senior official just ahead. And Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, was front and center today at an odd event that was billed as a hearing by Republican state lawmakers on alleged election irregularities. No one was under oath, of course. It was held in a Wyndham Hotel ballroom in Gettysburg. Trump, who was rumored to be planning to make the trip with Rudy and attend in person, instead phoned into the gathering to make more false claims about winning swing states like Pennsylvania, and for that matter, the entire election.
This election was lost by the Democrats. They cheated. It was a fraudulent election. We have to turn the election over because there's no doubt. We have all the evidence. We have all the affidavits. All we need is to have some judge listen to it properly without having a political opinion or having another kind of a problem, because we have everything.
Trump indeed invited some of those same Pennsylvania state lawmakers who took part in that Gettysburg gathering this afternoon to the White House tonight to be part of an indoor gathering on Thanksgiving Eve. It's a lot, but with that, let's bring in our leadoff guests on this Thanksgiving Eve. Peter Baker, chief White House correspondent for the New York Times, who, along with his wife and writing partner Susan Glasser, is the author of the new bestseller on the life and times of James A. Baker III. Jason Johnson, a campaign veteran and journalist, contributor at the Griot, a professor of politics at Morgan State University. Go Bears. And Dr. Kavita Patel, clinical physician and former senior aide during the Obama administration. She is now a non-resident fellow at Brookings and is among our medical contributors. Well, good evening. We certainly appreciate the three of you helping to tell our story here as we begin the hour. Peter Baker, I'd like to start with you and your beat. Kind of a split look from the president and the administration today. This type of pardon is the type of pardon a departing president makes, though you wouldn't have known that to look at the rest of the campaign infrastructure. There was Rudy, this time Rudy with the matte finish, non-drip, appearing in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania at a hearing that was not a hearing, in a hotel ballroom to argue for overturning the election, something we heard the president say out loud today. So, Peter, at long last, what is the state of the Obama presidency on this Thanksgiving Eve?
Well, look, at this point, it's just shouting into the wind. I mean, you can sit in the hotel ballroom and complain about the election all you want, but that's not going to do anything to overturn it. And there's this process is basically on path to being resolved. The swing states are certifying the elections. His own administration has ascertained that Joe Biden is a legitimate winner and therefore deserving of the transition resources provided by federal law. And everybody else except for President Trump and his team is moving on. The rest of the world is getting ready to deal with the Biden administration. The new president is naming cabinet officials. Senators are getting ready for, confirmation hearings for Biden's choices. And everybody is focusing on the holiday and on the COVID, pandemic that we're seeing spiking at this terrible time, except for the president. And it's quite a stretch. Now, you're going to see, I think this is not the only pardon you're likely to see. What we're hearing from our sources inside the Trump circle is that more pardons are almost certainly going to be on the way over these next 50-some days. There are a lot of people who are certainly seeking them, hoping for them, hanging out shingle, waiting for them. But one of the big questions is whether or not the president tries to even pardon himself. And you can see him laying the groundwork for this with the kind of hearing you saw today about how he's been cheated, he's been robbed, he's been gypped, he's been, the system is rigged against him. You can see, in effect, a narrative that
That is a very good and a very effective sort of rhetorical technique. The question will be as to whether or not he can rally Republicans around the kind of money and resources that are going to be necessary to establish these changes. But again, I also like the tone that I've heard from Biden, where he's like, look, we're going to move ahead whether Trump helps us or not. We're going to move ahead whether Republicans help us or not. And I think he's going to go through with that at least in the first 100 days once he's in office.
And Jason, while I have you, let me take one more to your accurate point there, and that is all the verbiage Biden used today was on the table and available to the incumbent president. We can beat this. Who's with me? We've had greater challenges before. We're the United States of America, after all. Instead, he chose denialism.
Yeah, the current president is responsible for where we are now. His undoing politically was his inability to manage this issue. And again, his son has gotten sick, and Herman Cain, and the fact that Donald Trump isn't just responsible for over 250,000 Americans dying from COVID. He is also probably directly responsible for so many people in his orbit continuing to contract COVID and him not doing anything about it. Him not even facilitating the resources necessary to make these kinds of changes. Him not even saying, I wouldn't be surprised, Brian, if we saw pictures of Trump having a Thanksgiving meeting with his family tomorrow with all sorts of people running in and out, which every single doctor in the country has told us not to do for safety. Joe Biden isn't just laying down the groundwork for how he's going to behave as a new president of the United States. He has set a contrast to Donald Trump about modeling decent behavior and how you select your administration, how you organize things, and how you behave in order to help a country through an unforeseen pandemic, but a solvable one with the proper behavior and discipline.
And now to the only actual doctor among the four of us, and that's Dr. Patel. This pandemic is at an alarming point. And doctor, I don't know if you're aware, every night for the past several weeks we have, and there's no pride in this, we've been able to come on the air and say the virus is at its peak right now. That's because it breaks every day's previous records. And I'll ask you what I've asked doctors for the past several days. Is it a given in your line of work that what's happening now, Thanksgiving, with families gathering, will lead us to a grim and dark set of circumstances and a potential bump in deaths and hospitalizations just in time for Christmas?
It is, Brian, and it worries me because we're, as you point out, not just in time for Christmas, but we're getting into a season where I think, critically speaking, we've got healthcare workers. My brothers and sisters are literally giving their lives right now, and I don't know how much more they can take. We are all trying to figure out how to navigate what the next 6 to 10 weeks will look like, and I'm ecstatic that a Biden-elect administration is already getting in the room and getting the planning going. I know what that looks like from the transition from Bush to Obama. And it's a lot of work. But Brian, this is not just toppling all records. To be honest with you, this is breaking the backs of the healthcare system that we need to stay open, stay alive, and stay vibrant. And these are the same healthcare workers, Brian, who are going to be involved in getting the vaccine out. So they are not looking at holidays and loved ones the way we are. They're trying to think about staying alive so that they can make sure they get us through to 2021. And so I just hope, listen, Brian, you've been doing this reporting every night. I really hope people tonight just pause wherever they are, try to do what they can to stay safe. And I mean it, that their lives are on the line. And so are some of my friends who are doing this in hospitals around the country.
Absolutely, and thank you for adding that, Doctor. Peter, to return to the naked politics of this moment, we do, after all, have an incumbent president still trying to overturn the results of an election. Tim Alberta picked up this reporting. He was reporting about the situation in Michigan and got this quote attributed to the president. "I don't get it," the president said, venting confusion and frustration. "All these other Republicans all over the country, they win their races, and I'm the only guy that loses." What is the president missing here, Peter?
Well, what he's missing is, in fact, that he has separated himself from other politicians for 4 years, actually longer than that, from the time he started running. He has made clear he does not see himself as just a Republican or a politician in general. He is an outsider. He is somebody who he disrupted the system. In some ways, his nomination and his presidency was the hostile takeover of one of the two American political parties. That's the phrase, by the way, hostile takeover that Jared Kushner uses. And so, it's not surprising that people made a distinction between him and other Republicans. It doesn't mean that they have rejected all of his policies. It doesn't mean they've rejected all Republican policies. A lot of Americans still believe in the things that the president stands for, but they are, as they have told us in the voting booth, they were disappointed in his handling of the COVID. They were disappointed in the way he has tried to divide the country. They were disappointed in his Twitter, style. They were disappointed in the various ways that he has been accused of misconduct. And I think that it's not surprising that people could make a distinction between one and the other.
Jason, I got something to play for you. This is former Congressman and host of Morning Joe, Joe Scarborough, with Nicole Wallace earlier.
Whether you like Susan Collins or not, the people of Maine elected her by 9 percentage points. They voted for Joe Biden by 9 percentage points. They gave Republicans, I don't know how they gave Kevin McCarthy's House more seats, but they did. They wanted to check Democrats, and they wanted Joe Biden in the White House to check Republicans. So I have confidence that there are still some people in the middle who will work with Joe Biden, whether it's Susan Collins or whether it's Lisa Murkowski or whether it's Mitt Romney on the Republican side, whether it's Joe Manchin, Mark Kelly, Governor Hickenlooper on the Democratic side. I believe there's 6, 7, 8 people of goodwill that will work with Joe Biden and will actually forge a consensus so we can finally get things done in Washington. It's been a very long time since we've had regular order and have been able to pass bills domestically that actually could move this country forward into the 21st century. We are stuck in this partisanship, and we have to move forward and do it. And I think Joe Biden may be the perfect man for the perfect time to work with Republicans and Democrats alike.
Hey, Jason, I wanted folks to hear that, but former congressmen really know how to talk, so I'm tight on time. A brief reaction from you. Will that give people hope?
No. Look, I love Joe to death, but that's not going to happen. I don't know where this mysterious gang of 8 is that he thinks is going to appear. The Republican Party under Mitch McConnell has made it clear that they want every Democrat to be a one-term president. And Trump can be mad that the country's just not that into him, but there are still Republicans who are living off that Trumpist base, which says destroy anything Joe Biden wants to do. There will be no peace. There will be no comity. It will be a battle the moment Joe Biden ascends to the presidency.
And Dr. Patel, same rules apply. I have seconds remaining. Should the number one focus of the incoming administration be getting the vaccine out and getting it into American arms?
Absolutely. And at the same time, reassurance that we can test people and get the economy open. The two go hand in hand.
Allow me to wish you all and yours a happy Thanksgiving, along with our thanks for helping us out this Thanksgiving Eve. Peter Baker, Jason Johnson, Dr. Kavita Patel. Greatly appreciate it. Coming up for us, the Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has a few things to say about the incumbent president's claims of voter.
This election was rigged, and we can't let that happen. We can't let it happen for our country, and this election has to be turned around.
The president speaking via iPhone today, repeating baseless claims of voter fraud at a staged so-called hearing with Pennsylvania Republicans in a hotel ballroom. President said out loud over the phone he wanted to overturn the results of the election. The timing is curious. Pennsylvania officially certified its election results for Joe Biden. Today, a judge there issued a temporary order preventing, quote, further action to certify results. The Attorney General, Josh Shapiro, responded by posting, quote, this order does not impact yesterday's appointment of electors. We will be filing an appeal with the Pennsylvania Supreme Court momentarily. With us for more, John Fetterman, Democratic Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Thank you so much for being with us. We realize you've got a lot on your plate, no pun intended. What is going on in your Commonwealth tonight?
What's going on? I mean, really the same thing that's always been going on with the election. You know, this Amway convention / carnival barking and snake handling at the Ramada doesn't change any facts about Joe Biden winning it, and there's no additional voter fraud aside from the two cases that I've been talking about for the last 3 weeks. There is absolutely nothing new under the sun. Joe Biden won. And what's curious is that if the rest of these down ballot races aren't certified by November 30th, we won't have a House, Pennsylvania House, and half our Senate because the terms expire on November 30th. So there really is no end game for getting these results turned over.
This is regarding your state, your Commonwealth. You took an oath of office to hear a guy like Rudy fly into your state and make claims of sweeping massive voter fraud must piss you off at a very deep level.
Yeah, I don't take it seriously because no one really takes, Mr. Giuliani seriously. Everyone knows how this movie's going to end. Like I said, it's just this sad, like weird pyramid scheme marketing thing at a ballroom at the Ramada, and like this wasn't an official function of the Pennsylvania State Senate. I'm the president of the Pennsylvania State Senate. There was nothing official about this. This was simply just some weird rally in a hotel ballroom designed to spread more information because that's all it is. All they have is lies. They've had over 3 weeks now to come up with anything concrete, and they haven't. Where's the voter fraud? Not one single case of voter fraud, aside from the two established cases in Pennsylvania, which both involved Republicans trying to vote for Trump with their relatives, whether they were dead or living.
Well, at least you've got Republican lawmakers at the White House tonight where they make the COVID fresh. They'll be coming back home after that gathering this evening. How does this leave your opposition party, the Republican Party in Pennsylvania, after this? Do you think they'll be healthier or poorer for having been dragged through this process, in some cases helping lead this process?
Well, I understand there's elements in the Republican Party that need to pander to this lunatic fringe / death cult that is part of the Republican Party now. And I hope they had a good time at the White House. It's not going to change anything. So this idea that they have somehow uncovered any fraud or there was any fraud is absurd. The governor certified the presidential election results for Joe Biden. That can't be changed. And these down ballot races, if they're not certified, we don't have a House or have our state Senate, and those are controlled by Republicans. So they're literally trying to make the argument that there was fraud with Joe Biden's race, but my race, there was no fraud in that race. So there's absolutely no basis in reality, but that's never stopped them from lying. But again, we have long passed the point of turning our backs collectively on this yelling fire in a crowded theater when there is no fraud. It's absolutely a lie. It's not a dispute. It's an absolute lie designed to damage the American franchise. And in Pennsylvania, it's not going to change anything because we all know that Joe Biden is the president-elect, no matter how many, like I said, Amway conventions they have in hotel ballrooms across Pennsylvania.
I also didn't want to ignore what is the actual lead story in Pennsylvania today. I'm very sorry for the game postponement. I am so looking forward to seeing those quarterbacks opposite each other. Your Steelers are 10-0. We get to see it on Sunday. We're knocking on wood. Everybody's healthy. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, for joining us. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family as well.
Thanks for having me. And yes, the Steelers are undefeated, so that we have that to be thankful for sure.
You got that going for you. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Coming up for us, no pressure. Our next guest. Last night here, we featured an interview conducted by Axios with Congressman Cardenas of California. He's in the running to head up the DCCC, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, hugely powerful within the House because of its recruiting function and fundraising. Only problem was your humble and bumbling host made it sound like he already had the job somehow, when in fact House Democrats haven't voted yet, and when in fact a good number of onlookers contend the frontrunner for the job is Democratic Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney of New York. He's just been elected to his fifth term in a seat he originally flipped in a district where Trump won, but where the voters liked Maloney's message and split the ticket. And so, with apologies for getting his Irish up, we are happy to welcome Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney back onto the broadcast tonight. Congressman, you're good to come on. Thank you very much. Is it an overstatement when you read the Politico headline that this job is the job needed to avert disaster for the Democrats, and further tell the good people watching the package of life experiences that you would bring to the role as opposed to your friend and former classmate and colleague in the House?
Well, look, first of all, I don't accept the premise that Democrats are somehow on their heels for 2022. I think we have a message and a focus on kitchen table issues that matter to most American families. Whether it's the pandemic or healthcare or jobs or good wages, I think we can fight this battle and win it. I think we're going to have a popular president in the places we need to win. That's great. I think we're going to have a recovering economy and, God willing, a pandemic in the rearview mirror. So I think execution is key. And whether the caucus chooses me or my friend Tony Cardenas, we're going to make a little history in terms of inclusion in senior House leadership. But more importantly, we're going to have someone who internalizes all the voices of our caucus, develops a battle plan, and wins. And that is what I'm offering to my Democratic colleagues. If they give me this job, we are going to hold this majority, and you can write it down.
Okay, you know the math is steep. I hear you that you like your chances. You know that Speaker Pelosi is going to get handed the slimmest majority in decades. You know what happens in midterm elections with newly elected presidents. But your point is that in the places where they love them some Joe Biden, you guys feel you can run up the score if you change your messaging and perhaps present a different face of the Democrats in Congress?
I think it's too soon to make specific statements like that. I ran the After Action report when we were at a similar crossroads. We listened to all the voices, developed the battle plan. We won 40 seats. I didn't do that. Ben Ray Lujan did it. Speaker Pelosi did it. A lot of great candidates did it. But we were able to architect a strategy, and we can do that again. The fact is that we are much more in sync with the everyday needs of working families like the one I grew up in than the red team. And whether they pick my friend Tony Cardenas or Sean Patrick Maloney, we are going to link arms and go forward together because the red team is coming for all of us. And we're not going to let that happen. We are going to support this new president. We are going to develop a positive kitchen table agenda around people's jobs and health care and things like, getting kids back to school and opening our businesses responsibly. And we are going to offer solutions. And if we have to execute better and communicate like human beings, well, so be it. I'm not afraid to speak my mind. And I do believe that there is more opportunity than ever. This is a hopeful time as we gather around the Thanksgiving table. And look, close counts and horseshoes not in control of the House. The Republicans are acting like they won. We have the gavel. The end. And yeah, it's a little closer, but they failed. And they failed. They got it beat for the White House. They got beat for the House. Mitch McConnell better watch his back. He's got to get out of the Stone Ages and start offering solutions now because there's a pincer movement that's going to happen between a united House Democratic caucus and a strong new president. And I'm excited about that.
Final question, and it's the dicey kind. Are Democrats ready to own how much damage defund the police did as a phrase, as a movement to races all over the country and to candidates and incumbents that had nothing to do with it?
Well, I mean, let's be careful. First of all, the Democratic House majority is not, responsible for that rhetoric. In fact, no one's responsible except the Minneapolis police officer who murdered George Floyd. And a lot of people thought that was wrong and were right to point out the historic and systemic problem with racism in America. And I think that caring about racism counts to a lot of my neighbors, even in a Trump district. And of course, we're going to support good police. Mm-hmm. But because there are voices that call for things that we don't support, or because our Republican opponents want to lie and caricature that, and we should not confuse that with what we support. So if it falls on us to get what we actually believe in out better, that's fair. But don't blame us because they're lying about what we stand for. My goodness. The fact of the matter is that we held control of the House. And there are many things that we can do better, Lord knows, in the digital area, in organizing in the community, in addressing the complexities of the many Latino communities that differ in South Florida or the Rio Grande Valley or New York, California. And yes, the Justice and Policing Act, named after George Floyd, is a good piece of legislation. I was proud to support it in my Trump district. I won by double digits for the third time in a row. That's a tall order as a gay guy. And I think we can communicate and win and stand for something. So I'm not going to run away from trying to change what's wrong in America just because a bunch of people on the red team are going to lie about it and caricature it. And I'd ask that you not adopt their language.
No, I know. I was asking because it had been affixed to candidates who had nothing to do with the messaging, and some of them very little to do with the movement. Your House colleague, Max Rose, down in Staten Island, it got hung around him in a very effective ad campaign that he tried to counter, but too late. This necessarily means we're going to have you back on to continue this conversation. The man, the latest casual nose count as the front runner for the DCCC job. Our thanks to Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney. Congratulations on your re-election. We wish you and your family the happiest Thanksgiving. Thanks, Congressman, for coming on.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Coming up for us.
If I had to describe President Obama in one word.
I just can't do it in a word.
One word.
Empathetic. Tough.
Pragmatic.
Cool.
The mean answer, well, no, I'm not going to say that on tape.
Barack Obama is a gentleman.
Nice guy. Complicated.
Wisdom with compassion.
That word would be steady.
I would describe Barack Obama in a single word: American.
All those people asked to describe the former president, and let me explain why and what that's from. Beginning this Friday, this network is presenting a multi-part primetime documentary series on Barack Obama and his legacy as told by those of us who covered him, those who know him best, those who worked for him, served alongside him. Let's talk legacies with the most quoted man on this broadcast, the celebrated author and presidential historian, Michael Beschloss. His latest work is Presidents of War. It is part of what long ago became the Beschloss shelf in our house. Michael, great to see you. Thanks for coming on. I was thinking of you today vis-a-vis a photo I have ready to show you and our audience. Fairly well known. It was the last time our country had 5 presidents in the Oval Office. And the big deal when this was published was that to the far right, Jimmy Carter was a man apart. He was the which doesn't belong and why in this photo, because he is different fundamentally in so many ways from his colleagues. But go forward from this. Can you see Donald Trump, pun intended, standing for this kind of collegial event, this kind of post-presidential tradition?
No, I can't, Brian. And the main reason for that is that as of tonight, Donald Trump has virtually no relationship with any former president. He's shunned them. He's said he doesn't need to go to them for advice because they're failures. And I think the result of this may very well be in the future that when there are gatherings of former presidents, he will not be there. That's what happened to Richard Nixon after his resignation. From 1974 until his death, Nixon was never included in a Republican convention, nor did he attend an inauguration.
I haven't had a chance to debrief you after your comment that you made on this network when the outcome of the election became apparent. You said we had come close. Tell our audience what you mean.
Well, I think American democracy went through a near-death experience. I think if Donald Trump had been elected to a second term without the constraint of having to run again, you would have seen authoritarianism in this country tried in a way that we had not seen before. There were a lot of hints of it in the first term, and I shudder to think what it would have been like, especially in the second term when the Senate was still held by Republicans who, even at this point after he's lost the election, are amazingly deferential.
For the families who've been affected by this virus, even for folks who will gather tomorrow, just as couples missing their kids, missing their extended family, this is a dark Thanksgiving. But I also, following you on Twitter these past several days, you've been chronicling what was happening. What was Thanksgiving 1963 like, just when we think we're living through a dark Thanksgiving ourselves in this country?
Well, American emotions had been brutalized by the assassination of President Kennedy, who was 46 years old, something that people had not seen in their lifetimes, the assassination of a president, especially one so young with young children. And image after image of his widow, who was 34 years old, Jackie, his two children, Caroline, who was 6 years old, and John, who was 3, on the day of his father's funeral. That was the kind of thing that Americans had not seen before. In retrospect, all these decades later, I think Americans look back and say that in all sorts of ways, America has never been the same since.
And let's end this segment where we started. You can use more than one word, but especially in the hindsight that 4 years and the Trump presidency has given us, what's the first draft of how you look back on Barack Obama as president?
Well, look what his contemporaries have just done this month. They just elected his chosen vice president, Joe Biden, by millions of popular votes. People are voting for Barack Obama with their feet. And I think the result will be important for him because no longer will you have a president falsely saying for 4 years, when I came in after Obama, I inherited a mess, and falsely saying Barack Obama was spying on me and all the rest. You'll see a president of the United States, Joe Biden, who treats Barack Obama with the respect he deserves, who will welcome him back to the White House for the first time in 4 years, hang his portrait, hang the portrait of Michelle Obama, and I think the full circle will have been completed, and Barack Obama will get the kind of hearing in front of history that he's deserved since he left, but because of the last 4 years has not gotten.
Happy Thanksgiving, my friend, to you and yours.
My friend, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to your family and you, Brian.
Michael Beschloss, our guest tonight. Coming up for us, for the few, the proud, the brave, those who are traveling to be with others on Thanksgiving, we have a guide, how to stay safe if you must, right after this.